Earthlings, how are you doing? Welcome to the show. First Contact Radio is the place, so if this is where you've expected to be, you've arrived. Welcome. Let's get into our cosmic weather for today, starting off with our weather at spaceweather.com. We see that our solar wind, right here, is at 317.7 kilometers per second. Our planetary K index is non-existent. It's at a 0, and our class chances for any kind of flares or geomagnetic activity is pretty slim to minimal at this point in time. The comet that was diving into the sun, Comet Lovejoy, survives. It says, incredibly, sun-gazing Comet Lovejoy appears to have survived its close encounter with the sun. Lovejoy flew only 140,000 kilometers over the stellar surface during the early hours of the 16th. Experts expect the icy sundiver to be destroyed. Instead, NASA's Solar Dynamics Observatory caught the comet emerging from perihelion, which is the closest approach, at least partially intact. Alright, so there you have it. That's what's going on with space weather. Astrologically, we are still in the sign of Sagittarius for a bit longer. Mercury retrograde is now several days past, so you should be moving along, smooth sailing, at least with clearer thoughts. And the moon sign is going into, or actually not going into, but is in the sign of Virgo, coming out of Leo into Virgo. And Virgo is the analytical sign. It's the sign of analysis. It's a sign in tarot cards. It would be the card of the Hermit, which is the energy that goes off, analyzes, learns, and then comes back even stronger from that process. So today you might find yourself engaged in a bit of intellectual, analytical activity combined with the Sagittarian expansion. It's a good day for thinking, creating, doing that kind of stuff. And our moon phase is getting less and less, moving down to that new moon phase. We're at 65% of the full, so you could see it drops pretty quickly. It goes from the 90, then it goes down like 10%, and now another, it seems like 15%, dropping pretty quick on the way down. That is our there, and let's check out our dream spell for today. And today we have a red rhythmic earth. Red rhythmic earth. Red is the color of initiation. Rhythmic tone is called the rhythmic tone of equality. And the earth is all about synchronicity and navigation. The phrase for today is I organize in order to evolve, balancing synchronicity. I seal the matrix of navigation with the rhythmic tone of equality. I am guided by my own power doubled. And on the Gregorian calendar, it is Friday, the 16th of December, 2011. That's our cosmic weather for today. Dirk Bradshaw is with us, and then later in the half hour from now, we're going to be doing an interview with Stephen Bassett. I've got it 2 parts. Today is going to be the first part. Monday will be the second part of the interview. So that's coming up. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let's jump over to Dirk Bradshaw. He's got a story about D.C. and see what he has to say. Dirk, over to you.
Flying high above the planet Earth, this is the Cosmic News with Dirk Bradshaw. I am Dirk Bradshaw. Well, there are thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people across the world that believe that the Freemasons control the District of Columbia through a use of arcane symbols and geomancy. But why? I don't know why, so why don't we both just sit back and find out together? That's what we have for you, boys and girls. You're definitely going to want to know this.
And if you ask our leaders today, this is what they will say. I can neither confirm or deny. I can neither confirm or deny. I can neither confirm or deny. What's up with their lives?
Washington, D.C. is one of the world's most important cities. Here the future of America is decided. But who makes these decisions? The President? Congress? Some believe there is a force behind the throne of elected office, one with international reach and none of the rules constraining public officials, the Brotherhood of Free and Accepted Masons. Could Freemasons really control Washington? How do we know? Here are the facts. No one knows when the Freemasons originally formed, but the group rose to prominence in the 17th century, making it older than the United States. This secretive organization places great power in ancient imagery. Their traditions are steeped in symbolism, but no outside observers know what these symbols represent, or what kind of power the images are supposed to have. Over the centuries, Freemasonry expanded from England to countries across the globe. Today, there are more than 6 million Masons worldwide. In the U.S., Freemasonry continues the same secret tradition as its European founders, and the leaders of U.S. Masonry congregate in Washington, D.C., where some researchers say they've etched their strange obsession with symbols onto the city streets. Washington, D.C. was founded on July 16, 1790, and named after George Washington, who was both the nation's first president and a powerful Freemason. Some of the city's designers were also rumored to be Freemasons. But I've been to D.C. It doesn't look that strange. The conservative Greco-Roman buildings seem normal for a nation's capital. When I spent a week in Washington, I didn't notice any signs of masonry, but maybe I should have paid closer attention. To some observers, the city is chock full of Masonic imagery, from the strange statues scattered around the mall to the eerie Washington Monument. Take, for example, the House of the Temple. Located at the heart of D.C. at 16th and S Street, the House of the Temple holds the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, the center of all Masonic activity in North America. The multi-million-dollar building also houses one of the world's most extensive collections of Masonic literature. The Masons present themselves as a service organization, a harmless charity. So why have conspiracy theorists paid so much attention to Freemasonry? And why is a harmless charity based in a top-secret building in the middle of downtown Washington, just walking distance to the National Mall? The National Mall brings us to another oddity, the Washington Monument. As homages go, a statue would suffice. Why reproduce an ancient Egyptian artifact? Here's where it gets crazy. The Washington Monument is actually an obelisk, a type of magical symbol found in Egypt, the Middle East, and Asia. Some sources believe the Washington obelisk rests upon a ley line. These ley lines are invisible, mystical currents of energy that span the globe, connecting ancient sites of power like Stonehenge and Incan temples. Ley line theorists believe this energy can be used to cause hallucinations or natural disasters, such as earthquakes and magnetic anomalies. The location of the Washington Monument may allow its controllers to harness this natural energy for their own purposes, whatever those may be. And why is our Department of Defense based in a Pentagon? Speculation varies. Some anti-Mason activists believe the Pentagon is built to replicate earlier structures built by the Knights Templar, one of history's most successful secret societies and the world's first international bankers. Others think the shape of the Pentagon creates a reservoir of energy from the ley lines, giving Washington's rulers a way to store the harnessed potential. Think of it as a gigantic battery, slowly building up a charge. These buildings are strange, but architecture doesn't necessarily mean a secret society controls Washington. It's a bit of a leap in logic. What about the geography? Some believe the geography of Washington mimics important occult and Masonic symbols. The bizarre street layout traces acute angles rather than grids. This might look normal on the ground, but if we view the city from the air, things get strange. From overhead, the layout bears an eerie resemblance to a pentagram, a symbol commonly associated with ancient Greeks, Gnostic Christianity, and black magic. Fringe researchers think DC's street design takes advantage of ley lines to focus this geomantic or earth-based energy on the Capitol and the White House. It reminds me of the Nazca lines, enormous ancient shapes traced in the Peruvian desert. Could they be related? We already know Washington is a town built on secrets. The nation's national security and financial stability rest on the decisions made in the Pentagon and Congress, many of which the average citizen will never witness firsthand. Even the most skeptical observer will note the odd layout of DC's streets and the strange conceits in our national symbols. This is the country that slapped a floating eye and pyramid on our dollars. The eagle was a Masonic symbol before it became our national bird. Looking at the evidence, it's hard to deny that symbols in the U.S. match symbols in Freemasonry. But why? This could all be a coincidence. The imagery could be nothing more than decoration. But if the Masons believe that symbols themselves have powers, then what kind of power are they trying to generate? Is it merely psychological, or could it be something more? Something they don't want you to know.
Next up on the Cosmic News Network, R.A. Grimes, Heart of Darkness. Best-selling author, R.A. Grimes, unravels life's mysteries as we travel through the heart of darkness.
You've learned your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, and now the time has come to think about values, and what values strongly guide the direction you take in life. A basic value is to protect yourself against harm, a primary harm, falling into the trap of evil. By understanding the values between nice and nasty, right and wrong, and good and evil, you give yourself a cognitive chest of tools to look into the mind and brain of evil. This understanding is your best defense against evil. The mind of evil often reflects an ideology with chameleon and destructive dimensions. You see the chameleon on the surface with oozing smiles, words of hope, and sometimes a projection of great things to come that stir a sense of pride for being part of a greater cause. The destructive values lie beneath the surface, awaiting discovery. Beneath the surface, there is no regard for the individual and his or her uniqueness. There is a devaluation of others, contempt, depersonalization and dehumanization. There is an absence of empathy. Through the eyes of evil, the world is filled with fools, to be manipulated and exploited. This person cannot afford to tell the truth about the underlying plan. Lies, deceptions, half-truths are presented as facts, and reality to mask the destructive core. To start your lessons on spotting and protecting yourself from evil, consider the following. Our values apply to the perception of people, achievements, and ideologies and ideas. These categories of thinking with values blend and direct what we think, feel, and do. This is a values framework for understanding not only what makes you tick, but what also gives you an important angle for understanding how others think, do, and feel. Evil is a distortion of normal human desires and values. You'll commonly find this distortion expressed through an ideology that disguises no capacity to care for people. The connection to people is through an ideology that favors evil. People are seen as mere objects or things. You gain clarity by paying close attention to those who would come at you armed with pure ideology. They may create an illusion of love and acceptance, but in the end, the goal is to subvert the individuality and uniqueness of you by brainwashing you into thinking through the prism of their ideology. In life, it's often more important to ask the right questions than to get answers. When faced with the question of evil, there are three questions. What is the ideology that this person peddles? Who gains the most through executing the ideology? What is the most realistic outcome? An evil outcome is the common result of buying into a depersonalizing ideology that is made far more important than people or achievements.
Oh, man, I can't believe it's over. Where does the time go? Well, I see the fat lady's off the stage. She's looking right at me. It's time for me to go put her to bed. I hate goodbyes. So instead I'm going to say, until we meet again, I'm Dirk Bradshaw for the Cosmic News. Wake up. This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, new UFO news time. Thank you very much, Dirk. We've got 5 stories for you today. First one comes to us from myufo.bravesites.com. ET craft over Val Pescara, December 14th. At the first, the object in the night sky over Val Pescara looks like a typical star, until the observer zooms in on the object. There is a distinctive black rim encircling the object and a shape that has been seen in video numerous times throughout the world, which can suggest that this is a UFO hovering over the city at night. Let's take a look at this. You can see it in the distance. Alright, here we go. We got the object right here. And as he says that there's a distinct black rim encircling the object. Pretty interesting to look up in the sky, see something like this. Alright. That is our UFO sighting in Val Pescara. Moving right along, we have a story from theexaminer.com. Tracy Pierce, is the infamous Dudley Dorito UFO reappearing or being recycled? At 6:40 p.m. on Wednesday evening, 52-year-old man Gary Knock was preparing to have dinner at a local pub in Hagley, Worcestershire, England, when with his family, when they allegedly spotted a UFO in the dark night sky. Knock, his wife Susan, their daughter Claire, and her boyfriend Jamie were in the parking lot of Badger's Set Pub when the UFO sighting reportedly took place. According to Express and Star, the family immediately recognized the unidentified flying object as the Dudley Dorito UFO, first captured on the video several years previously. Although it doesn't appear that the Knock family was able to capture the distinctive black triangle on video, Express and Star did manage to obtain video footage allegedly shot by one of their readers over Mary Hill. They posted the video along with the following description. UFO spotted over Mary Hill. Reader Jamie Gardner shot this video of something hovering the sky above the Mary Hill Shopping Center. What do you make of it? Alright, let's take a look at this, see what we make of this. Here we go. And there's the object. You could see it's a definite triangle. Definite triangle. Pretty interesting. Alright. Very good. So that's quite the sighting, quite a good close-up shot of this. If indeed that is what that is, and that's pretty darn good shot. Alright. Very good. Our next story comes to us from New Jersey. New Jersey UFO is fast-moving cloaked triangle. A New Jersey witness traveling along Route 322 in Atlantic County reports briefly watching a fast-moving object described as a cloaked triangle. According to December 15, 2011 testimony from Mutual UFO Witness Reporting Database. I saw some distance ahead of me a moving distortion in the, faintly solid and darkish clouds that appeared as a very fast, large cloaked triangle shape moving at high speed. The witness stated it appeared several times larger than I would expect a passenger jet to appear at that distance. I was traveling east to west. The distortion moved from north to south. The object was seen for about 2 seconds. It was like there was a cloaked large triangular flying wing turned on its side. Think of the distortion of the jungle in the movie Predator when the alien moved while cloaked. That is not how a part of the clouds looked. The witness is curious about what was seen. I don't believe it was an alien, but something natural and outside my experience. I'd love to know just what it was. No pictures or images of this, just the description itself. Now over at UFO Digest, we have an interesting story here which has to do, it says, in the beginning God created heaven and the earth. This is by Jordan Webb. The creation theory is something that has, as far as I can remember, been an idea that has both captured and tormented my imagination. I've spent hundreds of hours reading and studying different ideologies and writing from not just a Christian Bible, but many of the widely accepted faiths from around the world. What I've studied, I've been able to ascertain one definite truth. These texts discuss eerily similar events and ideas that defy all mainstream opinions and the collective beliefs of modern religion. Now, before you find yourself tempted to click unfollow and weigh up the odds of the ever engaging in conversation with me ever again, I challenge you to consider this. I am not alone in my views. In fact, millions of people across the globe are beginning to believe and accept that our race may have been visited thousands of years ago by beings which have since developed into the gods many worship today. I understand that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence in equal measure, and I will be the first to tell you that I have yet to find anything solid that inconclusively proves that ancient alien theories. However, there is enough evidence to suggest that there is more to our past as a species than we are being taught both in school and by mainstream scientists and historians today. The point of this writing isn't to explain to you the countless theories and evidence that backs this up. A few hours of research in your own time can do far more than my written accounts ever could. The purpose of this is to give you my view on what has already become a huge part of my life. It may be fair to suggest that I have become a slave to my own obsession. Regardless, there are worse obsessions I could subscribe to, and I believe it is time for me to share some part of my story with you. My story begins with a family holiday in France. I was 14 at the time, beginning to comfortably settle into my teenage mold, and had, like many others at my age, already developed a definite opinion of the world around me. I can remember the night that changed everything. I believed at that time more vividly than, say, some of my other memories from that time. It was the fourth night of the holiday, and I was walking back from the on-site club and bar with my family. My father and sister led the pack with me, and my mother trailing at the back. She had always had a broad fascination with the night sky and spent most of the walk back staring up the stars. I remember her stopping and surveying the heavens for several seconds. I decided to stop with her and wait. I'll never forget the tone of her voice when she said, "Jordan, look up." It was a tone that didn't require a why, just an immediate action of compliance. I stared up into the sky and struggled for a moment or two to spot what had caught her attention. It wasn't long before my eyes fixed upon three glowing objects, burning brighter than the stars. I suddenly felt as if my brain had suddenly switched on properly for the first time. There was no horror or shock, just a deep sense of curiosity and wonder. It's a sensation of which I've never felt since then, but I will carry with me the rest of my life. We watched the three objects dart around each other in the sky, stopping and moving at 90-degree angles. They toyed with each other playfully, almost as if partaking in some form of aerial game. We watched the orbs for 10 minutes, both agreeing it was becoming too cold, and decided to catch up with the rest of our family. I'm going to leave the rest of that story to you to finish up. And our last UFO news story today is White House ends silence on UFOs and ETs with rejection of PRG Petition 1, but Petition 2 is filed seeking examination of the Rockefeller Initiative. It is the first time that the White House breaks the silence about ET UFO issues, and they rejected the Disclosure 1 petition. They reasoned that there is no credible proof that UFOs exist. It's good news for the UFO enthusiasts to know that the Obama administration is open for the deliberation of this said UFO existence. Stephen Bassett, the PRG executive director, filed Disclosure Petition 2, demanding that the Obama administration investigate UFO disclosure before or during the Clinton administration involving OSTP and Lawrence S. Rockefeller, in response to the statement of OSTP officer Phil Larson, where Larson stated that the U.S. government has no evidence that any life exists outside our planet or that an extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race. In addition, there is no credible information to suggest that any evidence is being hidden from the public. Grant Cameron, Canadian researcher of the UFO website, obtained a letter that proves there has been a deliberation between the science advisory of the President, Dr. Jack Gibbons, and billionaire philanthropist Lawrence S. Rockefeller about the UFO extraterrestrial issue way back in 1993. The letters known as the Rockefeller Initiative are now in the public domain. Well, this is a good tie-in to the guest we have on our show today, which is Stephen Bassett, and we're going to be talking about this very issue, about the government's response, and then more importantly, the second petition, which is now out and being signed. So stay tuned. In about 5-10 minutes from now, we're going to begin that interview. It'll be the first part of 2 parts. Second part will be on Monday, first part today. Anyway, that's our UFO news for today. I'm going to jump away to a song. When I get back, we'll continue on. Stay tuned.
What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. The evidence is overwhelming. Step past your fear, take a look. Illuminati lies keep growing, but they're losing from your eyes. And wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What would our founding fathers say if they were alive today? Must be turning in their graves. Redcoats are coming, big brother's watching. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What if I land and two if I see? And I on the opposite shore will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth.
All right. All right, welcome back. So the debates were yesterday. I don't know if you caught any of the debates. Ron Paul is making really good headway along the way, and we've all seen that there have been different Republican candidates that they rise to the top and then they get attacked. That seems to be a trend that I don't know if it's just Americans or if it's around the world, but it's like the king of the mountain. You get up to the top and then people want to chop you down. So one by one, the candidates who have been out there at the top levels, they've been getting attacked, and their characters haven't been able to stand up to the attacks because, well, they really don't have a lot of integrity to stand behind. We find out that these candidates are all wishy-washy, they flip back and forth. Well, Ron Paul is the next one in the hot seat because he has been making progress, and the mainstream now is having to report about him. If you go back to the clip from yesterday, Neil Cavuto at the very beginning, you could see this definite scowl on his face as he's reading the teleprompter and is going to make the first announcement about Ron Paul and the success he was having. And Sean Hannity had Ron Paul on last night, and Sean Hannity, he's Sean Hannity. He's just, I don't know, for lack of a better word, he's just a journalist who is just towing the party line, and you can see the things he throws out, accusatory. He's doesn't seem to be very fair journalist. Fox News certainly is not fair and balanced. Anyway, they're starting to attack Ron Paul, but Ron Paul has some good character, so we'll see how he stands up to all of the scrutiny. He's been scrutinized for years, and he's still consistently on the same path. Now, this is an interview that he did yesterday, and this is with Megyn Kelly. So I want to play this for you. listen a little bit what Ron Paul had to say.
Well, folks, just hours to go before tonight's big Fox News debate, and a lot of eyes are on Ron Paul. He is making a big push to win over caucus goers here in Iowa. His campaign events here are packing in some of the biggest crowds. Polls show he is in the running right now to take the top spot on January 3rd, and Congressman Ron Paul joins me live right here. Congressman, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing it? Because these folks showing up at your rallies, it's not just, you know, older folks, younger folks. It's a mix. You seem to have energized folks across the continuum.
I don't know exactly what has happened because I've been saying the same thing for 30 years, but all of a sudden, you know, there's a lot of excitement. I think it's the conditions of the country and the conditions of the world because my policies have all been the same. I've been saying the same thing, but there's a lot more enthusiasm. But I think, sadly, it might represent how bad off we are in this country. The economy is in shambles, and I had talked about that and warned about it. And foreign policy, I've wanted a different foreign policy because I was always afraid we'd get bogged down, and I thought we went to war too carelessly. And the American people now, statistically, are with me on these things. They want the Federal Reserve audited. They want our troops to come home, and they don't like going into wars carelessly. So I think the issues have come around, but also the enthusiasm is building. The money's coming in easier. We have more volunteers, and we have a better staff now than we did before. So it's all coming together, and we feel pretty good about it.
Obviously, the support is ginning up behind you, in particular here in Iowa. But you mentioned foreign policy. That has been a big question mark about you and your campaign. And folks talk about, in particular, your stance on Israel and how, you say you're not going to step in if Iran gets the nuke and Israel's on its own. And you know that is anathema to many conservatives.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it's the problem, and I see that as my asset, because when I go around the country, and when I go to the campuses, this is where I get the loudest applause. They're tired of it. 65% of the American people want us to come home from Afghanistan, even higher than that. So I would say that it's not a problem. I'm not denying the fact that there's still a lot of people in the Republican Party who are much more anxious to go to war than I am. But all I'm doing is defending the conservative constitutional position that you go to war infrequently, and when you do it deliberately under a proper authority, which is a declaration of war. You fight these wars and you get them over with. But so I don't think that's an unpopular position, and I think the Republicans are now very frustrated, especially now because the foreign policy is being run by Obama, and it's a lot easier to attack his foreign policy.
Well, and you talk about Obama foreign policy and how bad things are in the country right now. Do you think that any of the GOP candidates who are going to be on the stage tonight could beat President Obama?
Oh yeah, I think all of us would have a very, very good chance because, the country's very down on it. And, in some ways, I see this a little differently in a different perspective because I don't see Obama as the problem. I see our problems as, monetary system, deficits been run up, economic policies of the last 40 years. Republicans and Democrats have been in charge all that time. So when Republicans have been in charge, we didn't do such a great job, and that's why the independent movement is so strong. That's why there's a Tea Party movement and an Occupy movement, because of this frustration. So Obama hasn't done anything to help, but he did not. He's correct when he said he did not create this monster. This monster, the seeds were sown in 1971 when we delinked our dollar from any restraint by a gold standard. That meant we could spend endlessly, run up deficits endlessly, print money endlessly, but there's always an end point, and what the American people have to wake up and realize, we're at that end point now, and if we don't admit that, we can't solve our problems.
The race has been very interesting to watch as an outsider, as somebody in the media, and here in Iowa in particular, because you get deluged with ads. Not so in New York City, I can tell you that, but here in Iowa, yes. And one ad we see over and over is an ad that you're behind that's going after Newt Gingrich. We have a little bit of it for the audience to watch in which you accuse him of hypocrisy. Let's take a look.
Everything that Gingrich railed against when he was in the House, he went the other way when he got paid to go the other way.
He's demonstrating himself to be the very essence of the Washington insiders.
It's about serial hypocrisy.
Now, do you mean that? I mean, you're telling me that you think any of the Republicans could win, including, I presume, Newt Gingrich. So do you really mean that?
Yeah, I think the country is so bad off right now with the conditions. They want a change. So if the Republicans offer change, yes, I think every one of them would have an opportunity.
But that's a tough ad against your fellow Republican.
Yeah, and I even forgot to put one in there because I think.
But some people think that's mean. Iowans don't like negative campaigning. That's a negative campaign
I think
ad.
there's a difference. Negative campaigning is calling people names, demagoguing the issues, and misrepresenting people's views. But to point out, different positions, that's my responsibility.
Hypocrisy, though? Did you go too far?
I think when you flip-flop around, there was one other issue that I personally found annoying is that, he's probably as aggressive with the military as anybody. He supports all the wars in the Middle East 1,000 times more than I would. But, when in the 1960s, when I was drafted, in the military, he got several deferments. He chose not to go. Now he'll send our kids to war. But at that time, he said that one person wouldn't make a difference. He didn't know how he could make a difference. So I see that as important information. People should know that, and it reflects on him.
We're up against a hard break, but I want to ask you very quickly, what's your plan for tonight?
Tell the truth.
Gonna be good old Ron Paul.
Tell the truth, and that's the easy way. They never accuse me of flip-flopping.
Congressman, thank you so much.
Very good, Ron Paul. That's what he does. He just tells the truth. He stands up there and speaks what's going on, and you watch the jaws drop of all the other people who can't believe he's saying the things he's saying that need to be said. All right. Yesterday was a big day. I got two quick stories, then we're going to our interview. Yesterday was a big day. The Bill of Rights was enshrined 220 years ago. However, yesterday, the indefinite detention bill passed. This comes to us from InfoWars' Aaron Dykes. Today is December 15th, 2020. 220 years ago, the coalition of founding fathers concerned about the over-centralization of power under the United States Constitution as written succeeded at last in adding a Bill of Rights that would protect individual freedoms and limit the reach of the federal government. Thus, 10 critical amendments to the Constitution were ratified by the states and delivered into law in 1791. These guaranteed rights include that of free speech, arms, privacy, and due process, among others, have not only been violated by the modern state, but trampled upon and trashed through the arrogant and unconstitutional legislation, executive orders, and statements, and the lack of common sense protection in the courts. But today was the crossing of the Rubicon in the time for the anniversary of the Bill of Rights. The Senate has now passed the reconciled version of the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, earlier passed by the House, putting into law for the first time the asserted right of the government to indefinitely detain American citizens without trial. Nothing could be more un-American or against the Bill of Rights. The President, reversing his previous threat to veto the bill, is now expected to sign the bill. RT appropriately writes, exactly 220 years to the date after the Bill of Rights was ratified, the U.S. Senate today voted 86 to 13 in favor of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2012, allowing the indefinite detention and torture of American citizens. It's a shame that that's going on, and it's a shame that we have leaders in this country that would see a bill like this put in place. Now, I know that I'm not surprised to hear that they're going to sign it because originally Obama said he wasn't going to sign it, he was going to veto it. How do you know if Obama's lying? His lips are moving. So if Obama said he was going to veto it, he actually means he's not going to veto it. You see, whatever Obama says, just take the opposite, and more than likely that's what's going to happen, because that is what has happened so far with things he has said. He does the opposite of them. It's not a man that stands by his word. It's a man who changes his word as often as the wind. I guess the best way to compare him would be to be like a fart in the windstorm. He just doesn't seem to know which way to go. Now, part of that bill, Defense Authorization Act, is going to place the National Guard Bureau Chief on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. President Barack Osama, otherwise known as Obama, otherwise known as Barry Soetoro, is set to sign the National Defense Authorization Act, which is called H.R. 1540, which, among other things, places the Chief of the National Guard Bureau on the Joint Chiefs of Staff despite the opposition of other military brass. When campaigning to become president, Obama pledged that he indeed would make the commander of the National Guard a member of the Joint Chiefs to improve integration with forces drawn from the United States with regular national forces and to address their specific needs. Since Obama's election, Senators Patrick Leahy and Lindsey Graham led a high-profile campaign to place the National Guard Bureau Chief on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They introduced legislation similar to that presented in previous Congresses and vigorously recruited co-sponsors for the measure until the passage in the Senate seemed assured. Bottom line of all this, folks, this bill that they're signing is not good. They're going to give power to the National Guard to go into the streets. They're going to violate posse comitatus, and they're going to put the United States under military law, military rule. Now, the sad thing is most Americans don't even realize, because the mainstream media is not covering these stories, they don't even realize that this is the situation that's going on. When I've mentioned it to others, their comments are, oh, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so there shouldn't be a problem. They're thinking too small, because if the government puts something like this in place, they're not concerned about your small thinking. They're going to do whatever they please and whatever they choose to do in this situation. And they don't care if they're violating the Constitution, because quite frankly, they're trying to get rid of the Constitution. The fact that you still think that it's there is because they've done their job in fooling you. They're going to take it away, friends. They're going to take it away, and they're closing in more and more on their restrictions, and it's very important that we pay attention. So I'm going to give you an exercise over the weekend. Look this up. National Defense Authorization Act. Try to find out as much as you can about it. Read the stories we have at our site. This is very important. This isn't just a story to dismiss. This is a story that is going to affect you and your family, and anyone who lives in this United States of America is going to be greatly affected. Because if they decide that they want to put military in the streets and the United States has already declared a battleground, guess what? Martial law is in place. They don't need to go out and declare it, because this bill essentially has put that in place, in position. So be ready, folks. They've got something cooking. They're putting things in place, and you know our government, they don't put things in place unless they're going to use it somehow or another. All right. Now, let us jump forward to our interview for today. I did an interview with Stephen Bassett, as I read to you in the previous UFO story. Most recently, the petition that was put out was denied by the White House. As a matter of fact, this is their response. This is at the White House site, and they said that there wasn't anything out there. There was no need. U.S. government has no evidence that life exists outside of our planet, or that extraterrestrial presence has contacted or engaged any member of the human race. In addition, there is no credible information to suggest any evidence is being hidden from the public's eye. Well, it would only take a little bit of researching on your part to be able to find out the absolute ludicrous statement that they make here, because there is tons of evidence that has been presented. As a matter of fact, there's been a sighting over the White House, and yet they still deny. There have been presidents who have come out and with statements of seeing UFOs, and yet they say there is no evidence. There has been alleged treaties with extraterrestrial races being done at military bases, and yet they say there is no evidence. The lies go on and on and on, but there are activists like Stephen Bassett out there who are fighting to see that this is not going to continue to be the case, these lies. There are activists like him out there fighting to make sure people understand the truth. And in that regard, a new initiative has been put out, the Rockefeller Initiative. That's a good lead-in now for the next segment, and I'm going to go ahead and play this interview now. This is Stephen Bassett. This is the first part. I'm going to play the second part on Monday, so you'll have all weekend to be able to check this one out. Here we go. Let's listen to Stephen Bassett. All right. This is Josh, First Contact Radio. I'm here today with Stephen Bassett. He's the Executive Director of Paradigm Research Group. He's a political activist challenging government policies towards an extraterrestrial president.
non-human intelligence engaging the human race. He has spoken to audiences around the world about the implications of an imposed truth embargo, and his work has been extensively covered by national and international media. Stephen, thank you very much for being on the show again. How are you today?
I'm fine. It's always good to be with you, Josh.
Excellent. So what's the latest? The last time we spoke, the other petition was going around, and then we all heard the bonehead announcement from the White House. What's going on since then?
Are your listeners pretty up to speed? I mean, are they going to know what we're talking about here?
Oh yes. I've been keeping everybody up to speed on what's going on.
All right. Well, the first PRG disclosure petition, along with the second petition, it was somewhat similar. Achieved 5,000 signatures and got a response from the White House on the 4th of November. That was the intention from the beginning.
Okay.
Get the White House to respond in writing, formal position, not on the UFO question, but on the extraterrestrial non-human intelligence question.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, the UFO, the concept of the UFO, the acronym, the whole thing is of the past. It's just not where we're at now. This is not about UFOs anymore.
Okay.
This is about an extraterrestrial non-human intelligence. Keeping it about UFOs, of course, serves the truth embargo quite well, and the government is quite happy to have it that way, but I just don't intend to play by their rules. So the White House response was not surprising and yet still a little shocking, given that it's 2011, but they chose to take the hard line for there's 4 or 5 possible reasons why they would have done this, but the Office of Science and Technology Policy, which is chaired by Dr. John Holdren, who absolutely signed off on it. There's no way we simply published without him knowing what was in it.
Okay.
Was that there is not, never has been any evidence at all for life outside the Earth or for any non-human intelligence engaging the Earth or people on it. They then re-emphasized that later in about a 9-paragraph response, when they said that there was no credible evidence for any of this. This is notable for 2 very good reasons. One, it's false. It's false. And 2, it's indefensible. You can't defend it. It's challenged. And this is, of course, how they've handled this. One of the ways you get the truth embargo to keep going is you simply don't ask, don't tell. The press doesn't ask, and we don't have to tell, and everything just goes along. We don't get challenged, we dodge, we weave, we skate, and they've done that and successfully avoided being put in a position where they actually have to, quote, account for their conduct. Only on a few occasions has the government, in this case would have been the military, ever come forward and tried to be definitive. And this happened back in 1997. In the time leading up to it, they panicked because the 50th anniversary of Roswell was coming, and there was a lot of publicity about it, a lot of press. There were some projections that maybe several 100,000 people were going to go to Roswell for this special festival, and they were worried that this was going to maybe trigger press inquiries and investigations that might be a problem for them. So they departed from the normal procedure, which is to simply say nothing and act them and just act ignorant of the whole thing. And try and put out a third explanation for Roswell involving a mogul balloon, a nuclear detonation detection tech from that period, and crash test dummies that were dropped out of airplanes, though 5 years after Roswell actually took place. It was a huge embarrassment when they gave the press conference at the Pentagon. The media actually laughed at them, laughed at the presenter. That's a rare instance, and of course they're still trying to live that down. But now we have their formal position. First time ever the executive branch has done this. It's now a stationary target, and we're going to go after it. So the first round of petitions were fully successful. Now we go to the second round.
Okay.
And Paradigm Research Group put up Disclosure Petition 2, and almost exactly at the same time, Bryce Abel and Richard Dolan put up what they refer to as the Need to Know petition, which is fine.
Okay.
Now, all of PRG's petition work here with respect to the We the People project on whitehouse.gov is at the information is all at disclosurepetition.info.
Okay.
The Bryce Zabel and Richard Dolan petition and the promotion for it, links, everything else is at disclosurepetition.com.
Okay.
So those are the two information addresses, and then you find there the direct link to the petitions on the White House website. So they went up. However, this is a complicated and intriguing game that is being played. The White House, during the first round of petitions that started back on September 22nd, became concerned when something like 15,000 petitions came in, making them worried that, my God, we may end up having to respond to several thousand petitions here, and we can't do that. So what they did was they raised the threshold for a White House response from 5,000 signatures in 30 days to 25,000 signatures in 30 days, which was too much. They overshot there, and the result, and here's how things have worked out, because we're now 3 months into this thing, sort of how it goes. They probably got about 20,000 signatures, 20,000 petitions. In order to get posted on the site, though, you have got to go out and come up with 150 signatures. That's kind of the threshold for being posted on the site and being in play. Of the 20,000 petitions, only 400 or so have actually cleared that 150, because most people are not in position to promote, or they're not committed enough to promote, because really this takes a lot of effort to galvanize support for a petition, even one that's on the White House website.
Right.
Of the 400, only a few score have cleared the threshold, and most of those were the 5,000 threshold, not the one that was eventually raised to 25,000.
Okay.
So from here on in, very, very few petitions are going to clear the 25,000 threshold for response from the White House, thus kind of getting them off the hook. Well, there will be a few. But it gets worse, because sometime in late November, exactly when we don't know, essentially the website started to come apart like overcooked chicken and break down, so that when the two petitions that were submitted by PRG and Dolan Zabel went up, immediately we started getting emails, and we've gotten several scores of emails have come in from people that are going nuts trying to sign these petitions. If they had an account previously, they're having trouble logging in. If they didn't have an account, we're trying to create one, they're having trouble with that. They're having trouble signing the petitions. They're having problem with web browsers. Meanwhile, the site at the White House, the website, the We the People, has been down for maintenance repeatedly. It's simply come apart at the seams, and as a result, one, people are angry, they're frustrated, so they're just not inclined to promote this. They're not promoting and sharing a link. They're not able to sign, and that word has gotten around. And so these two petitions are off to a very slow start. And I believe, as far as I know, and I would assume that all petitions up there are being affected by this. So, in other words, commercial enterprises have these kinds of sites all the time, where you open an account, you receive a verification link, you get a password, you go in, and so forth. White House is not a commercial operation, and so they have not met and are not been able to meet the commercial standard that you would expect in this kind of a setup. Because obviously, if you're a company and you have these kind of problems, you just destroy your business. It's just not an option. It has to work. So why it's started to fall apart after about 2 months, and worked pretty well in the beginning, who knows? They probably made some changes, did some tweaking. So essentially, the two petitions that are up have virtually no chance, well, barring some dramatic possibilities here, they don't have much chance to make 25,000 signatures, and very few of the other ones do as well. So it's a mess, all right? But gee, what isn't a mess in America today with respect to governance and what have you? The good intentions are not enough, right? You can have a good intention to help somebody across the street, but if you don't actually help them across the street, what's the point, right? The good intentions really don't mean anything. So we got a complicated situation here. The Zabel-Dolan petition and the PRG petition are both going after the White House position response to the first disclosure petitions by bringing and putting forward direct evidence or discussing evidence that the White House now claims doesn't exist, and putting it right out there as part of the new petitions so that the media can look and say, wait a minute, they say nothing exists, but then what about this, you see, comparing the two.
Right.
And Zabel-Dolan are approaching it from the standpoint of unidentified aerial phenomena and the work that has been done by NARCAP and Richard Haynes with a huge pilot database of sightings from commercial and military pilots who've reported to them because they're not allowed to really speak about it publicly. Both commercial and military have been essentially hogtied on this for some time. So they've reported to independent entities. We have thousands of them, and we're talking silver discs 30, 40 feet off the cockpit window. You know, that's not a Boston cream pie out there. I mean, it's not a flock of geese. So it's not a UFO. It's a 40-foot silver disc. You may not know where it's from, but it's pretty phenomenal. And it's either piloted by humans or piloted by non-humans or controlled by humans or non-humans as a drone. That's only 4 possibilities. It can't be anything else. A 40-foot disc off the window. So again, UFO nonsense, right? It's about, people mistake the moon for a craft. Fine, who cares? Right? It's about the evidence for the extraordinary events and phenomena that matters, and of course the government claims now none of that exists. None of it is real. None of it has any credible evidence supporting it. Now, the PRG petition is approaching it from a very much more controversial and sensitive angle, and that is the Rockefeller Initiative. Grant Cameron and others, but particularly Grant Cameron, obtained 1,000 pages of documents from the Office of Science Technology Policy during the Clinton administration, as well as additional documents from the Clinton Library, all of which confirms that for 3 years the Clinton administration was entertaining an effort by Lawrence Rockefeller to get the Clintons to release UFO files, crank up new investigations, basically end the truth embargo. This went on for 3 years. The Clintons met with Rockefeller at his ranch. Rockefeller had a bunch of researchers up to his ranch in Wyoming to plan strategy. There were meetings. There were reports made. A book came out of it. This went on for 3 years. So if the Office of Science and Technology Policy says now there is no evidence for life outside the planet or any kind of engagement, what was the Office of Science and Technology Policy under Clinton doing? Now, what's particularly interesting about that is that the people that knew about this initiative and in some cases were involved in it include major figures in the Democratic Party and the current Obama administration.
Hold on one second, okay?
Had never spoken publicly about it and never been asked a single question by the press about it. In other words, don't ask, don't tell. Who were these people? Well, Bill Clinton knew about it, was involved in it. He never said anything. His wife, Hillary Clinton, knew about it, was involved in it. Now she's the Secretary of State. His staff was Leon Panetta. He knew about it. He's now the Secretary of Defense. Was the head of the CIA. John Podesta was involved and knew about it. He was a TA to Clinton. Now he was just recently the chairman, the co-chair of the Obama transition team to help pick the new administration. And he was the most frequent visitor to the White House of anybody in the first 90 days. Bill Richardson, the friend of the Clintons, almost certainly knew about it. He's governor of New Mexico. You see where I'm going here?
I sure do.
These people want to run the country. They want to run the State Department, the Defense Department. They want to run states, but they don't want to talk about this.
Right.
And they don't want to be asked about it. And the press has actually gone along with this, but I don't think they're going to go along with it much longer. And so the purpose of the second petition was to put that right there. And so now the Rockefeller Initiative sits on the White House website in the form of that petition. It's only got about 2,700 signatures, thanks to the collapse of that site. But nevertheless, it's going to be up there for at least until December the 30th.
Okay.
So you see what's going on here. There's a chess game going on, and we made a very strong move a while back, and now we've made a second move, but we've been thwarted by the coincidental unraveling of the White House site, which is causing havoc with people all around the world. Some people can sign, some can't. Some can open accounts, some can't. And it's not clear why. We've identified certain browsers that don't work with it. The Google Chrome browser doesn't seem to work very well with it.
Okay.
Opera doesn't seem to work well with it. So again, good. I guess game well played, right? I mean, they have blunted this. Now here's the deal.
Okay.
The simple fact is that even with these problems, we could put 25,000 signatures up there in a single day.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, 25,000 people go create an account, takes a couple of minutes, get back an email with a confirmation link, click the link, and then you get the password and your username. You go in, you log into the We the People, and you sign all the petitions you want to sign. And it's typical arrangement. People have done it many times. It takes 4 or 5 minutes.
Well, while we were talking, I went to the site, I just registered, and I was able to sign the petition without any problems.
Well, that's good. Maybe they've even fixed it. I mean, it was down for maintenance the other night for about the 5th time. But here is the dilemma. I think it's a dilemma, and it's a confounding thing.
Okay.
This is the most important issue in the world. The
It would seem like it.
Nations and peoples, the future of the human race is enormous. And we've been kept out of it. We've been denied, information and the ability to assess and perhaps participate in this for 6.5 decades. The polls have been done repeatedly by Time and Reuters and Roper, CNN, Ipsos, and these polls are serious polls. They're not one of these internet things where you just simply put up a statement and say, "Do you believe this is a true yes or no?" and people click on it. No, we're talking about real polls. They kind of have percentage errors, a margin of error of 2, 3, 4, 5%. And these polls have shown repeatedly that the number of people that believe the U.S. government is not telling the truth about this is in the 80 to 85% range. That's about 240 million adults in the United States. But the number that actually believe that ETs are here, that they are behind this phenomenon, even to the point of living amongst us, which I think my jury is out on it, is around 45 to 60%, approximately 140 million adults believe ETs are here now.
Right.
140 million. We need just 25,000 of those people to put their first name and last initial on a White House petition in order to help drive this thing forward, force another response from the White House. And I'm wondering, what's the problem here? I mean, people can take a few minutes to address an issue of this importance. Do they really just want the government to keep lying about everything until the country collapses? Which, by the way, is in the process of doing, in case anybody hasn't noticed. The government built on lies cannot succeed.
Sometimes it seems like people prefer the lies. It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
Well, it looks like they prefer the lies, but then they go out in the streets and march and sit and occupy because they've been lied about finances and banking and everything else. I mean, I guess I understand when it hits your pocketbook, when you lose your home, your house, your pension, your job. Yeah, you get angry, you go to the street. All right, I understand that. But we're not asking people to go to the street. We're asking them to simply go and spend 5 minutes, sign a petition.
Right.
And so if the people do not if the people don't make an effort to get the government to start treating them like adults, to allow them to the table instead of having to sit out in the living room on the cardboard, with the cardboard table with the paper napkins and the knives, plastic knives and forks. I think government's going to keep treating them that way. And they're not going to know what's going on until it comes up finally and bites them in the ass.
Right. All right. That would be the end of part 1. I'll be back with part 2 on Monday. But in the meantime, I wanted to bring your attention to the petition that's been up here. You got the link at the website. All you have to do, you go, create an account. It's really easy to do. Just create an account, and from that point on, you're going to be able to go ahead and sign the petition. And it's pretty seamless. I mean, it happens pretty quick. Now, one thing I can certainly verify, and I know others who are in the area of alternative news can verify, is there's always someone messing with your numbers. I've watched statistics go up and down for no rhyme or reason, and I've seen and definitely witnessed to numbers being fudged, and this goes all across the board. You can see this examples of this all the time. There'll be videos up on YouTube, and they'll be up there for days. Videos are getting big hits because they're being publicized in big ways, and yet they will simply be ignored, and the numbers will go down. So anyway, let's jump ahead to our meditation for today. That's the end of our information. Let's go ahead to our meditation, close things out. There we go. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and close your eyes and relax. Alright, I'd like you to imagine that you are walking down a path. And as you're walking down a path, I want you to see yourself come to a fork in the road. And you come to the fork in the road, and you have a decision to make, which way to go. And you look on the path to the left, and you look at the path to the right, and they both look similar. But as you really take a moment to pay attention, you find that your eyesight adjusts and you see things a little differently on each path. You see that one path is much more illusionary, and one path is much more truthful. And you listen to your inner voice, you follow your senses, and you walk down the path of truth. And as you walk down the path of truth, you see that your mind becomes clearer, because the things that you once thought were lies suddenly clearly present themselves to you for what they are and what they aren't. And you find yourself able to see much clearer what is happening in life. And you realize this ability to see clearer has existed all the time. All you needed to do is give yourself the opportunity, and clarity is not really an issue. Let's imagine all of our chakras are activated, starting with the bottom of the spine, red. Raise the energy up to the chakra above it, right at the belly button, orange. Raise the energy up to the chakra above that. We've got the solar plexus, imagine the color yellow. Raise the energy above that to the heart chakra, imagine the color blue. From the heart chakra, raise the energy up above that, the heart chakra green, to the throat chakra blue. From the throat chakra to the third eye, imagine the color violet. And finally to the top of your head, indigo, and the light continues on into the cosmos. Feel the multicolored energy floating through your body. When it overflows, you notice the line of light around your body. This is your spiritual armor. It's part of your spacesuit that you wear. You simply use the chakras to help activate the spacesuit. and activate all the other controls that exist within this spacesuit. Now, go ahead and send love all around the world from the heart chakra. Imagine the color green. Imagine this love being sent to everywhere. And let's just think a good thought for everybody in the world. Let's do so on the... Let's bring our energy and attention back on the count of 3 as we're continuing to think good thoughts. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. And there you have it, my friends. That's the show. Our prayer, meditation. I hope you enjoyed the interview. The second part will be on Monday, so stay tuned for that. Enjoy your weekend, my friends. Be safe. Do a little investigating. Find out what this bill is, the NDAA. You can find all the links at our page, First Contact Radio, right-hand side, daily news. All the stories we talked about are right there. So follow them, check them out. I'll be back next week with Dirk Bradshaw with more news and information. Peace. I'm out of here.